As you may know, last year I upgraded to a Canon R6 to use for all of my videography work, photography work, and social media stuff. Basically, if you've seen something I made in the last 8 months, it was shot on the R6. Overall, I'm really happy with it. It takes great photos, great videos, and the 2 lenses I have for it are super sharp and cover basically everything I need. So what's the issue then if the camera's so great? Well, I'm sure some of you saw this coming, but my biggest issue with the R6 is the overheating when shooting in 4K. Now, this is a well-documented issue with this camera, and I knew about it before I bought the camera. I've only experienced it maybe a handful of times since I've had it though. It never really bothered me that much because most of the work I was doing was with photo or just short bursts of recording for social media stuff. I wasn't doing a whole lot of 4K video shooting for a long time, so it was never really that much of an issue. Until recently. I shot my first wedding video with Anthony Gugliotta. You may recognize him from TikTok.
I made a list of everything I want in my dream camera.
We shot a full wedding video together, which turned out amazing by the way. But it was a 9-hour day and the weather was pretty warm, around 30 degrees Celsius or like 86 degrees Fahrenheit for my Americans. So even though I wasn't constantly recording, I could take breaks. The R6 still had to last me the entire day. And because this was a wedding video, I was shooting 4K 60 FPS basically the whole day so that we could slow it down later. So the 4K 60 combined with the already hot weather meant I was basically fighting the camera from overheating all day. To the R6's credit, it technically never actually overheated because I was trying to give it breaks whenever I could. But the camera gives you an estimated countdown until it overheats when you're not recording. That little time in the top corner that normally shows you how much recording time you have left on your SD cards. When the camera starts getting warm, that switches from showing you how much time you have left on your storage to how much time you have until the camera overheats. You can tell the difference because when it's giving you an overheating estimation, it always shows in exact minutes, like exactly 5 minutes or exactly 10 minutes. And that's the camera telling you, you have probably 5 minutes or you have probably 10 minutes left of recording 4K until the camera needs to take a break. Having this estimation is better than just not knowing at all, but it was a constant stress throughout the day worrying that my camera was going to overheat and I was just going to have to stop. This isn't a problem when I'm recording videos like this one because if my camera overheats, that's fine. I can just take a break, wait for it to cool off, work on something else in the meantime. This isn't like a time sensitive thing and I can always reshoot or re-record things. But when you're shooting something like a wedding, the day isn't going to grind to a halt because your camera got a little warm. My camera overheating on a wedding day could mean missing an important moment like the first kiss, and then you just don't get that back. So if I want to solve this overheating issue, what can I do? Well, there's a couple options, but none of them are ideal. Probably the best solution would be to get an external recorder like the Atmos Ninja 5. This is essentially a big monitor that sits on top of your camera and can record 4K 60 directly to the monitor instead of using your camera's resources to record everything. Your camera just does the capturing, the recorder does, well, the recording. And this would pretty much solve the overheating issue. A lot of people have had success with this shooting with a recorder and they can use the R6 for as long as they want. There's also a lot of other benefits to shooting with an external recorder, but it's not a perfect solution. The first big problem is that shooting with an external recorder adds a lot of bulk and complexity to your recording setup. Adding that big screen to the top of my camera might mean I have payload issues when holding it on my gimbal, and I would almost definitely have clearance issues with it on my gimbal because with the monitor on top of the camera, I wouldn't be able to move the gimbal up to put it into briefcase mode because the gimbal has to move over top of the camera. It's also just more complicated. It's another device I have to set up and worry about. It's another battery I have to swap out every couple hours. And on top of that, I'd probably also need to buy an SSD drive and also mount that to my camera setup somehow in order to record to it because the Ninja 5 can't record to SD cards. Basically, I can't just get a recorder. I would have to fully kit out my camera. An external recorder is definitely something I'm going to consider down the line, and it's probably a natural next step anyways. But right now, it's just going to add a lot of cost and a lot of unnecessary complications to my workflow. So that's not an option, at least right now. The second option is just waiting and praying that Canon comes out with a firmware update that fixes the overheating, or at least makes it a little better. They did this with the original EOS R when it came out, but it seems unlikely, and I can't just wait around and hope that Canon fixes things. And the last option, and the one that I'll probably end up doing, is buying a second camera that doesn't overheat when I shoot 4K. Canon just released the Canon R7, which has a lot of the same features as the Canon R6, just with a crop sensor instead of a full frame sensor. But one of the features it boasts is being able to record 4K without overheating. And because it's a crop sensor, it actually costs a little bit less than my R6. Another interesting option is the Canon R7C. Now this isn't officially announced yet, but it's rumored that Canon at the beginning of 2023 is going to be releasing a Canon R7C, essentially a cinema version of the Canon R7. Now this will probably end up being essentially just a crop sensor version of the Canon R5C. So that's looking like a really good option. The only problem is I have to wait. Now, if I got this, I wouldn't be getting rid of my R6. As you may know, a lot of professional photo and video jobs require 2 cameras. Even if you're not using both cameras at the same time, which when you're shooting a wedding, you usually are, but even if you only need 1 camera, it's great to have a second camera as a backup because you never know when a camera is going to break or have some kind of issue that means you can't use it for a shoot. And you don't want to have to reschedule an entire shoot just because your camera isn't working. And right now I only have the R6, so the natural next step for me would be to get a second body anyways, even if I wasn't having this overheating issue. The R6 is awesome for photos, so it makes sense for me to wait for a camera that would be awesome at video. There's a Canon R5 and the Canon R5C. They can both do 4K without any issues, but that's kind of expensive and it's a little out of my range at the moment. It sounds like the R7C is going to be the perfect camera for my situation. The problem is I just have to wait like at least 6 months until it comes out. We'll see if I can wait around that long. If not, I might just have to pick up a regular R7, but we'll see. In the meantime, I'm just going to keep shooting with the R6 and trying to manage the overheating when it comes up. Shooting 1080p would solve this issue, but it's just not really an option for a lot of the work I'm doing. Although 1080 still looks really good, these days a lot of people expect 4K when they're paying money for you to shoot video. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, please hit that like button. If you want to see more stuff like this, hit the subscribe button. I recently got the DJI Ronin RS3, their new gimbal, and I'm going to be releasing a full comprehensive review on that very soon, so stay tuned. As always, links for my social media and links to all the gear I use on a regular basis are linked down in the description if you want to check any of that out. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.